Community is the compass, built not of sameness, but of voices varied and vibrant, stitched together in a quilt of care and resistance. Let difference be our strength, not our division.
Shay, my brother, how are you this evening?
Hotel brother, I'm doing well. Thank you. Yourself?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, brother.
Oh, there you go. Right on. I think that was on my end. All right, to all you viewers, welcome into Politrics. My name is Stevenson. I'm here with my brother Yates. As usual, we talk politics and we talk politricks. Um, I like to always start off a show by saying I have something to be grateful for. Well, yeah, things are going pretty well with me, so I'm glad to be on the platform that we have, and we have some good things that we plan to have come up for the first time coming from this network. So I'm grateful for that. How about you, brother? How are you today?
Brother, I'm a little tired, but it's always good to be with you to share some knowledge with the brothers
Right
and
on.
sisters and people listening around the world and around the
Yeah.
country.
And believe me, people are listening. Ain't that something? It's all good.
Let
Well,
me get
you know,
this situation. Let me get this situated here.
all
There we
right.
go.
There
Okay.
you go. You good?
I'm good, brother.
Okay. All right. Let's Shay, we good. All right. So let's get right to it. The news of the day. Venezuela. So listen, we know he went into Venezuela. He went there, took Maduro, snatched him up, him, his wife, locked him up. We understand it's not the first time that this country has been involved in these type of actions, but what do you think this is all leading to? Oil?
Well, I think Trump answered that question best himself. There was some members of the press corps traveling with him on Air Force One. And one of the members of the press corps said, Mr. President, did you contact the oil companies before this kidnapping of President Nicolas Maduro? And Trump said, yes. Now let's think for a second. This is a military operation which requires, a level of secrecy, right? The oil companies have nothing to do with the strategic planning or, the military planning in an attack to capture a so-called wanted criminal.
Mm-hmm.
So why would Trump be calling the oil companies? Clearly this was a plan in the works. Now you have to go back to when Trump ran the second time. He approached the oil companies and he said, "Look, I'm looking for your assistance, financial assistance, to get elected." And from what I understand, the oil company said, "What do you need?" And Trump said, "I need $1 billion."
Wow.
Well, now the oil companies are looking for a return on that investment. And if you go back to the administration of George W. Bush, after 9/11, then Vice President Dick Cheney was always missing. If you recall, nobody ever saw Cheney.
Right.
What was he doing? Dick Cheney was also meeting with oil companies, big energy companies. And what they were doing was identifying the last remains or reserves of oil. Iraq was number one on the list. And of course, we invaded Iraq. Also on that list was Venezuela. So now here we are attacking Venezuela and abducting their president. And let's also keep in mind that on Christmas Day, President Trump launched missiles that struck in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Nigeria is one of the largest OPEC producing nations, or is part of the OPEC nations. So anywhere where there seems to be any sort of strategic minerals or vitally needed resources, the U.S. is taking them by force.
Mm.
And as you said, this is not the first time, and it won't be the last.
So I guess we're actually an empire now, huh?
Well, we've
We're
been for long.
imperialists. We're imperialists and we're conquerors. So if you don't want to go our way, we'll just take it from you. That kind of seems to be the message of the day.
Well, we've been that for a long time. This is not something new. You know, in this hemisphere, right, we have been controlling things without necessarily establishing colonies. Now, sometimes we will. Puerto Rico, right? Puerto Rico was taken by force.
Hmm.
Hawaii, another location taken by force. Hawaii is a state, Puerto Rico is a territory. But if you think about it, someplace on Cuba, we say Cuba's a communist country. But haven't we been controlling Guantanamo for the
Hmm.
past, what, half a century or more, right? Or even further back than that. So America has always been an imperialist nation. We just do it a little differently than our former colonial partners who established colonies. We established more economic colonies. Instead of establishing a U.S. presence, we just siphon the resources and the money out.
Well, that's a lot of what they've been trying to do, especially over there in Africa. But it's a good thing they got some African countries that are banding together, and hopefully things will work out well for them. But over here, this whole action kind of pissed Congress off. I was reading something that Jasmine Crockett, she was talking about how pissed off she was because how Trump circumvent Congress, just went all around them, and that's supposed to be illegal action. It's like you're trying to start a war, but you're not going through Congress to do so.
Well, here's the thing, right? I think that a lot of people feign outrage, but are they really?
Mm.
If you go back to former President Bill Clinton, if you talk about former President George W. Bush, if you talk about former President Barack Obama, and most currently former President Joe Biden, since the abduction, which is a violation of international law, of Nicolas Maduro and his wife, I haven't heard any of the prior presidents say anything.
Mm.
And I think that's because, well, all of them have been taking money from these corporations, particularly energy companies.
Mm.
So most of them have remained silent on the subject. And there is no question that Bush has been in the oil business. I mean, look, his family is known for having moved to Texas and
Mm-hmm.
establishing themselves in the oil industry. And most of the people, if you go back to George W. Bush's his cabinet, most of them had some connection to big energy. So they're not saying anything. How can you not when we are openly violating international law, when we have kidnapped the leader of a sovereign nation,
Yep.
when we've committed an act of war?
That's what we did. We definitely did that. We committed acts of war. And we didn't go through Congress, which was supposed to be the legal way that we're supposed to do things, and that didn't happen here. And it's obvious that that's what he's going after, because if he was going after drugs, why is he letting this guy? What's his name? Hernandez. Why is he letting this guy out? This guy was what was the president of Honduras. Why? And he pretty much in the same boat as Maduro, right? They put him in for
Well,
25 years, and he's going to get a ticket out. Why?
here's the thing. He's already got a ticket out. And here's the thing. When we talk about Nicolas Maduro, you have to understand something. We've never seen any sort of evidence to suggest that Nicolas Maduro was a what the Bush administration, I'm sorry, the Trump administration calls him a narco terrorist. First of all, Venezuela does not produce narcotics. Narcotics are produced in places like Afghanistan, which is the number one producer of poppy, and places like Vietnam, the Golden Triangle. That is where the bulk of the narcotics come from. What you will find in Venezuela is cocaine. That is grown in the region. Cocaine is not a narcotic. He is not a narco terrorist. And I don't know if there's any evidence to suggest that he was even profiting from the sale of cocaine. All we have is what the media is telling us. This is the same media that told us that Saddam Hussein had a cache of nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons that he was going to use against his country. We went into Iraq, 20 years there of killing, and not one weapon of mass destruction was ever found. This is the same intelligence agencies that got it wrong in 04, 03, 04 when we went to war. Well, what makes us so sure that they got it right this time? What evidence do they have that Nicolas Maduro was involved in any sort of illicit drug trade? Keep in mind, they blew up these boats. They didn't seize them. They didn't board them to do inspections to look to see if they were transporting drugs. They just attacked innocent civilians on these boats, exploded them, and all evidence. So what evidence do they have against Maduro? Now, the other guy, the former president of Honduras, had been convicted, tried and convicted in this country. And now he's going to be back out on the street. A convicted drug trafficker is going to be back out on the street. This man, who the president said was a narco-terrorist without proof, who the same President Trump called the oil companies before he made this abduction, he's the one that's got to go to jail? Come on.
Well, I'll tell you my take on it. I believe that he did this, and they had to use a lot of propaganda in order to persuade the American people, to get them on board, to say, hey, it's okay for them to go over there and blow these and kill these people. Because if you listen to the word on the street, that's one of the things that they say is, well, he's taking care of the drugs and he's stopping the drugs from coming in. So what if there's a terrorist coming into the country? And what if they're doing it? It's a whole lot of what if with no actual proof. But they put it out there as though they're saying it as a fact that these guys are bringing drugs into the country. Now, fentanyl, I guess about 80% of fentanyl is made right here. You don't have to bring it in. Fentanyl's been in this country for years. Doctors would used to prescribe it for pain. You understand? So I don't understand this big drug thing. And we know, like I said, this is not about drugs. This is about taking over. Just like he wants to do with Iceland. Right? Is it Iceland or Greenland? One of the two.
Greenland. It's Greenland.
He wants to control the entire hemisphere, this entire hemisphere, top to bottom, left to right.
Well, you have to understand, right? For America's in a tough position. 70% of the world's rare earth minerals are controlled by the Chinese. America does not want to put itself in a position where it has to negotiate and buy from a perceived enemy. So America's trying to catch up in a rare earth race or mineral race, right? That's one of the reasons he wanted Greenland, because Greenland is one of those countries that has been identified as having a large reserve of rare earth minerals. Problem is, they're buried under thick layers of ice. So many countries, like the Danes, have tried to get access to these minerals and have not been successful. Trump seems to think that he can do it, that he is going to be the one that can break through the ice and get access to these rare earth minerals. So, America is no longer in a position to even want to negotiate. Now, under Trump, they're just going to take what they want. This is just a replay of what happened prior to the start of World War II. What you saw in 15 years, 20 years after World War I, you began to see a rise of fascist governments, dictatorships, right? Then there were the ethnic tensions. Then there was the loss of German pride. In this case, you hear people in this country talk about, we want our country back. Well, who took it from you? They talk about America has lost pride. Well, how did that happen? Right? So we're looking to blame people for America's shortcomings. And the Trump administration is using that as a pretext to go and take whatever they want. But how the American people going to benefit from the capture of Nicolas Maduro or the
They're not.
bombing of Nigeria?
They're not.
No way.
But not according to this administration, that they're doing America justice. They're protecting America by doing these, by creating these acts. And this is how I tell you they get the American people on board, especially the MAGA crowd or anyone that's a Trumper, if you want to say. Hell yeah, go out there. You're doing the right thing, Trump.
I don't think the American people are on board simply because one, Trump promised not to take us to war. That Trump said it's silly for America to be involved in these foreign conflicts. So much time, effort, and resources are sent to other countries. This is the man that cut off humanitarian aid. We're not talking
Mhm.
about military aid, humanitarian aid, food subsidies. He cut that off, right? But now you want to go and capture the president of Venezuela, let the
And
president of Honduras go. You want to bomb in Nigeria because you want to protect the same country that you said was a shithole. You want to protect black people, but back here in this country, you want to shut down black owned or black museums. You want to erase black history.
Mhm.
You want to do away with black culture, but you want to save the Nigerians. Too many mixed messages,
He want to
right?
save the white Nigerians. Remember that? That was the Christian, as he called them, the white Christian Nigerians. They were supposedly
Ain't
being
ain't too
slaughtered,
many
and they were
ain't too many
terrorists.
white folks. Ain't too many white folks in Nigeria. If you could find a handful, I will tell you, you found a lot. There's
Well,
not many in Nigeria.
let me ask you, what happened at the beginning of the man's campaign? Didn't he say that we don't want to put any boots on the ground? We don't want to go to war with any country? And I mean, didn't he say all of these things? So
He did, and
why is
that's
he trying to get involved in a war with somebody? Someone he
and
wants to get to a war with.
and that's my point. That's why the American people are not supporting him because he promised to put Americans first, to concentrate his efforts on America, bringing back American jobs. He talked about bringing back manufacturing. He talked about bringing back coal, right?
Right.
In this region. None of this stuff has materialized. Now you're saying all the things that you promised. I'm going to open up the Epstein files. I'm going to make it transparent. Now you want to hide and obfuscate the Epstein files, right? So all these promises that you made, bringing down prices at the grocery store, none of that is happening. But what does it cost to maintain a fleet of 10 ships off the coast of Venezuela,
I think it was
right? What
150. What did they have? Helicopters and jets that were in the air going. It's 150, over 150 of them.
So they had a full battle group, right,
Yeah, they had.
in
Yeah,
the region. Now, what does it
right.
cost to park a battle group off the coast of Venezuela,
I
right?
can imagine, man. The
It's a lot of
numbers are
money.
too high for me to think about.
Right. Now, the American taxpayers are paying for this exercise,
Mm,
but it's the oil companies that are going to benefit.
of course.
Trump made that phone call to the oil companies, not to the American people, not to Congress, right? He went to the oil companies and said, should we go?
And
And he got
did
his okay from them, not from the
I don't
American people or from Congress.
I don't know if you heard it, but the oil companies, I was listening on the news and they were saying, well, that the Venezuelan oil is actually American oil, and that the Venezuelans, they owe Exxon and all these different companies all of its money. So now they're gonna go in there and extract the oil to get their
Well,
money.
that's an American lie, just like so many others that have been told.
Mm.
There is one company that uses Venezuelan oil in this country. I'm almost certain that Valero Oil, right, is an offshoot of the Venezuelan companies, or maybe the Venezuelan government, right? But even Trump, in a speech, maybe this speech was done during his first administration, he said, we're buying oil from Venezuela.
Mm.
Trump said that himself. So if this man is such a pariah, if this man is a narco terrorist, as you say, why would America be buying oil from a narco terrorist? We're not dealing with narco terrorism. What we're dealing with is American terrorism. We went over there, and this is not something new. We tried for some time to get rid of his predecessor, Hugo Chavez.
Right.
In fact, Hugo Chavez was exiled by the American government. The people of Venezuela said, hell no, we want our president back. Hugo Chavez was allowed to return. And then suddenly, I think there were four leaders in South America that came down with cancer. The only one that suffered a fatal form of cancer, Hugo Chavez.
Hugo Chavez.
You think that's just a coincidence?
Of course, it's
I
not
don't
a
think so.
coincidence. How do you
No.
think Maduro stayed in power for so long, man? I mean, I'm not saying that the man is not corrupt, but hell, our president is corrupt. I mean, if it's about giving people a right, or they have the right to go into a sovereign nation and just take the president out because they feel that he got his powers illegally and everything is illegal, so it's okay for another country to come over here and snatch this guy up. Because I believe the last election was rigged, snatched him up because he's a criminal, because he's committed crime. They should snatch him up and bring him over to another country too, and that would be legal and okay, because that's exactly what we did.
Well, I have
Is it
one
not?
better for you. I have one better for you. The International Criminal Court, a court of justice, has issued a warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu.
Mm.
So why is it we're not going into Israel and arresting Benjamin Netanyahu and taking him before the International Court of Justice? Now, Benjamin Netanyahu was just in this country. Netanyahu was just here about a week ago, right before this strike took place.
Mm.
And we've also, right, like I said, we launched missiles into Syria just, 2 weeks ago? Now, why are we doing that?
How much
What
is it
threat does
costing us
Syria
to do all
pose?
these military actions? I'm just wondering how much is it costing us, the American people? Because apparently we got all this money to buy missiles and to go and invade other countries, but we don't have enough money to take care of our own people here in America. Because when we start talking about Medicaid, we got to defund it because they think maybe somebody, what do they call it? What they call them, the welfare queen, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
the big welfare queens are the corporations. Those are the real welfare queens. Okay, one or two people on welfare may be getting over, so they want to do away with the whole program.
Mhm.
But there's never enough money to take care of us. It always seems to be enough money to go into some war, or we give how many billions of dollars a year away to another country that their kids don't pay to go to school, and that country has universal health care. So I'm just trying to understand it. They keep telling me that all these actions that are taking place are supposed to be good for the American people. I don't understand it. All I see is us going into what do they call it? Martial law, because they want to lock down all of the cities. They want to lock up all the Americans and put them in jail. They want to kick out all of the immigrants that were here. And a lot of them were not here illegally, if you want to say. And I don't even like to use that term, the illegal aliens, because it sounds like they come from space or some shit like that. So I'm just really, truly trying to understand in which direction are we going. And after we did this invasion in Venezuela, what is supposed to be the next step?
Well, in answer to your first question, what is it costing us? It's costing us billions of dollars. You got to figure, just say one aircraft carrier alone, right? Fuel, food, salaries, right? All the supplies. And we have an entire carrier group off the coast of Venezuela. In America, over the past, say, 40 years, we've closed bases here, opened them overseas, right? A lot of our bases now are basically sitting empty. Why don't we have homeless people living on these bases that we no longer use for military purposes? So it's costing us billions of dollars, right? And, you and I, same age group, right? You and I grew up when this country was engaged in the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
What did America benefit? The average person, the average Vietnam vet, what did they gain by fighting in Vietnam?
Nothing. There was
Right.
a lot of death.
You
More Americans died in the Vietnam War than they did in the Civil War. You
Well,
understand?
actually, the Civil War had a lot more. I think 600,000 died,
No.
and those are just Americans. In
Right.
Vietnam, we lost about 68 to 70,000, and those numbers are greatly. Those numbers have been greatly deflated. Right? They don't want to tell you the true number of people that died in Vietnam. They want to keep the number around 68,000, but it's probably a lot higher than that. But the point is, I remember these guys coming home strung out on heroin. These guys coming home couldn't get the help they need in terms of the psychiatric help. Remember, these guys were going nuts on the street.
Mm-hmm.
You take these guys, 19, 20 years old, and you put them in the jungles of Vietnam and tell them to kill little brown people who have in no way threatened them. And then there were the atrocities that were committed, right? Because the government said we want a body count. I remember when I was in the army, I was at Fort Benning. If you went out the back gate of Fort Benning, you see a big sign that says Callie's Army Navy. That was Lieutenant Callie from the My Lai massacre.
Mm.
He was supposed to be in jail, but the government brought him back and said, hey, you just go quietly away and don't make any waves. But countless Vietnamese, Laotians, and Cambodians died. We dropped more bombs in Vietnam than were dropped in all of World War II. And for what? What threat did the Vietnamese pose to us? What had they done? I did some research the other day. America just is about to celebrate, I think, 250 or 251 years? In that time, that short window in time, America has been involved in over 200 military actions. Over 200. I'm talking overt as well as covert actions. How many people have we overthrown? How many governments have we overthrown? How many political
Quite a bit.
assassinations have we carried out?
Mm.
Including those in this country, like President John F. Kennedy, like Abraham Lincoln, and the list goes on.
Either we funded or orchestrated it. Let me tell you though, I was watching on the news today, and I don't know if you know it, but up in Alaska, up in that area, you had the Chinese and the Russians flying. They were about 200 miles off of Alaska, and they were
Mhm.
doing their little military missions. I say that to say that China and Russia collaborating with each other. I see that as being a big problem here, bro, for us, man. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something. I think that for mutual protection, other countries around the world are going to enter into agreement to protect one another. Like we have the NATO agreement, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think other countries are going to do the same thing. I mean, several decades ago, there was, of course, NATO, and then they had the Warsaw Pact, right? That was the countries that were surrounding the former Soviet Union.
Right.
Well, I can see that happening again because America is becoming more and more aggressive. What's to stop America from taking? We talked about the bombing of Nigeria. Well, Nigeria is part of the Sahel region. And we already know that America really wants to see President Traore removed from power.
Mm.
All of those governments that are aligned and that are forming alliances, we know that the U.S. wants to break those alliances. We know that the U.S. wants to control that region because we're not just dealing with oil, we're dealing
Mm-hmm.
with uranium. We're talking about
Oh.
strategic metals. You need those to build those nukes. You need those things, right? If you want to maintain a strong defense, you don't want to buy them from China because China doesn't have to sell them to you. So now America's in a position we're going to have to take them, and we're going to have to take them by force.
And
But the
that's
rest of the world simply is not going to sit back.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what we're doing. But my man in Burkina Faso, I really enjoy what he's doing. I respect what he's doing. He's actually have alliances with these other nations, and I see that it's growing. Every time I turn around, there's another country that's down with the Pan-African. He's trying to create a one Africa. It just seems that every time we as a people we start to come together, unite, or whatever it is that we do. If it's not the Black Panthers, what they turned that thing all upside down and tried to make them sound like they were terrorist groups, but they didn't say that about the Ku Klux Klan. But every time we as a people start to come together and we start to build, it's always they want to assassinate us. They want to destroy what we've built. And then they talk bad about us. They try to talk down about us. And I don't understand what the hell they're so afraid of. They got everything, don't they? So what's the problem with us building for ourselves?
Well, here's the problem. See, America is under attack from multiple fronts, and I don't mean military. I'm not talking about a military attack. I'm talking about America's economy, which is based on the US dollar. The value of the dollar continues to plummet. And so many countries now have abandoned the dollar and they're going to things like the brick, right? So many major countries, Russia, China, India, have signed off on the brick. How do you stop them? Before we would go in, like when Muammar Gaddafi allocated $70 billion to get Africa out of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Well, we just went in and killed Muammar Gaddafi. And of course, the world said, well, he was a bad guy. No proof of that. In fact, it's just the opposite. If you talk to the African nations, when Muammar Gaddafi seized power in the 70s, most of the people in Libya could not read and write. Now, years later, literacy is probably at 90%. They had one of the highest standards of living throughout all of Africa. And that's the person we chose to kill. But he wanted to go to a gold-backed currency. Dollar can't compete with that. And now you have these other nations who are also signing off. Well, what are you going to do? Attack Russia? Attack China? Attack India? Attack South Africa? So they're trying now to find other ways, other than the dollar to stave off the inevitable. Even in this country, there are so many retailers that won't even accept a US dollar. Try to buy gasoline from Sam's Club. They don't want your dollar. They want your debit card. They want your credit card.
Yeah.
Most of the stores around here or across the country, you don't find cashiers. They want you to go to an automated teller, right? Automated checkout. Want you to swipe your card.
Mm-hmm.
So we've already phased out the penny, right? Next, they'll be phasing out currency in total because it's of no value.
Yeah, you know what they want to get to eventually. They want to pop you with that chip. Boom.
Well, yeah.
From birth. And once they get
some people have it already.
Really? I thought.
Oh yeah, some people have it already.
I thought only the pets have that. People would have a chip.
Oh no. There are people now that have a chip implanted under their skin. They use it for purpose of debit, credits. They use it to unlock certain doors, offices. They have a chip already implanted in them. They think it is so convenient, not realizing what else can this chip do?
Can track you.
And maybe it can kill you as well.
Movement. Yeah, probably. Right. If it, yeah, man. If it, yeah, maybe depends on what somebody wants to do with it. They can be nefarious. They can do nefarious things with it. But so what? Again, what do you think this thing is gonna? What do you think the outcome is gonna be about this Venezuela trip?
Well, I think
you think he's gonna put boots on the ground. You think we're gonna end up going in there with troops?
Well, this is what I think. I think that the woman who's the vice president, who just happened to be out of the country in Russia when this happened, conveniently, I think she is going to be given the keys to the castle. And I think that already deals have been cut, right? I think that the CIA has approached her and said, look, we'll give you control of Venezuela if you'll allow the U.S. companies to come in, the oil companies to come in and begin siphoning the oil. If you allow the other companies to come in and begin extracting the gold. Now, if you go back to even back as far as Hugo Chavez, they talked about how bad Venezuela's economy has been. the level of poverty in Venezuela. Well, now that American companies are going to take over, how is that going to help the poverty or conditions, the economic conditions in Venezuela when the oil and the money is going to be flowing north to the US? How's that going to help the people of Venezuela?
Well, none of this is going to help the people of Venezuela. Even taking Maduro out, because they didn't change the regime. The regime is still there. All of the same people are there. Even the vice president. You know, if they really were doing something for the people of the country there, then why don't they put the actual person that won the election?
Which is Maduro, right? And
Well,
they've
no,
already
no,
they've
Maduro didn't win. He took the election. There was a woman, I forget her name, but she was a woman that actually won. She won the popular vote and everything.
well, you
But
got to understand something, right? You got to understand something. This is what the American media is telling us, right?
mhm.
This is the same American media that told us Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. This is the same American media that said Dr. King was a dangerous communist.
Mm.
This is the same American media that said the Black Panthers were a terrorist organization. Now, the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan is a Christian organization. How many people were lynched by the Black Panthers?
None.
How many neighborhoods were burned down by the Black Panthers?
None.
Well, how many neighborhoods were destroyed by the Ku Klux Klan?
None.
By definition, they are a terrorist organization, right? How many lynchings at the hands of the KKK? We can't even count them all, but they're still a 501c3 organization that is Christian in nature.
Mm.
So we cannot believe almost none of what the American media wants us to believe
Yeah.
because they're trying to control the narrative. They're trying to tell you that Nicolas Maduro is a bad man, that he is a threat. What about Donald Trump?
Hey.
Who is it that has bombed in Iran? Trump. Who is it that bombed in Syria? Trump. Who is it that bombed in Nigeria? Trump. Who is that went and abducted a Democratic elected president? Trump. But Maduro's a threat?
Who is it
How
that is
many
a
times?
that is definitely
34
a
felony
criminal?
convictions.
Yeah. Who
34
is it
felony
that's trying to?
convictions.
Now they wanted that. They people voted for that for a man that wants to take away your health care. They didn't want to vote for someone that wanted to increase and help you out with your health care. All the things that we say that we wanted in this country, we voted against.
Right. Right.
I couldn't understand the
People,
way that election went.
well,
You
people
know?
vote against their self-interest. That's a problem in America that dates back, centuries, right?
Yeah.
Because of the media, because the media tells us, it shapes our perception, our
Perception.
perception, right?
Right.
And the perception of Nicolas Maduro is that he's a tyrant. But how do we know? How many of us have actually been to Venezuela? How many of us are listening to alternative sources of information to find out what's really going on?
Well, I sure would love to. I would sure love to hear somebody from Venezuela come out and say something because they were protesting in the streets, as far as from what I could see, and they were some were protesting against, some were protesting for. So I really don't know the whole situation over there in Venezuela, but I do know it's not America, and why are we in somebody else's business? I mean, look, I know it's about taking the oil. I got you, and that's the only reason why we're over there, man. All of this stuff about drugs coming into the country, that's just a ruse. That's all it is. Just to
Hmm.
trick the American people. That's all that's about, man. To get the
Hmm.
American people on board, to satisfy his following, the mega, that mega
Hmm.
crowd. That's all this is about, man.
And,
That's all.
and, and in actuality, he's losing the MAGA crowd, right? If you see, his base is fracturing, right? He lost somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and he's losing more of the Republican caucus because after a while, you can no longer justify what he's doing. You can't simply explain it away. I saw something during one of the previous boat strikes, and there's a senator from, I want to say Mississippi, I can't remember his name. But anyway, he said, he saw the strike on this boat. And he said, after the first strike, there were people clinging to the boat. And he said what he saw was people attempting to get back into the fight. What fight?
What fight?
Who fired a drone strike or a missile? What weapons did they have on this boat? But here's a man that is telling the American people or wanting them to believe that there was a threat coming from a speedboat against an aircraft carrier.
How is
And
that
the boat is running away.
See, that's another. How the hell is a speedboat going to make it from Venezuela all the way to America to deliver
It
drugs?
can't.
And
It can't.
even if they got gas or whatever, and they came to a certain point, don't we have coast guards?
We do.
I mean, I
We
guess
do.
they don't. They must not be adequate. They don't do their job. Is that what it is? So we needed to have our military might go in there and prove it or something. I don't know.
Well, the oil companies gave Donald Trump a period of time, right? And now, we've invested $1 billion. We want a return on that $1 billion investment.
Right.
And this is the start of it, right? There are other countries that if Trump is allowed to take Venezuela by force and gain control of its oil and its gold, then who's next? Down in Haiti, after the earthquake, and I believe it was '09, fissures opened up in the ground and they found out that Haiti has tons of iridium, one of the largest, if not the largest, reserve of iridium. Iridium's worth, I think, $10,000 more an ounce than gold. So now Trump initially said, well, we want to get people out of here. Now, after that, he reversed course and said, we're going to allow the Haitians to come to America. Why? Because you want to get them off the land, because you want that iridium. So if we're going to be aggressive in Central and South America, in our backyard, the Caribbean, we're going to take what's down there as well. And, the world powers are going to be in a position where either they're going to stop America now or stop America later. But it's going to happen.
Well, people are getting pissed off and they're going to revolt. People are not going to continue to take it. We'll see what happens. Maybe they'll smarten up in this country and decide to impeach him. I don't know. But even if they did that, then we'll end up with Vance, and I don't know if that's much of a trade-off. So, all right. As you can see, this little guy here is I think he wants to go to the bathroom. So we're gonna have to end this short. Come on, come say hello. He's shy. He doesn't want to say hello. But he's been bugging me the whole time we've been sitting here. He wants.
I thought I heard him barking.
Yeah, you heard him, right? Yeah, he wants my attention, man. All right. Thank everybody for tuning in. I really do. We really, really do appreciate you tuning into our shows. Tomorrow is the Empowerment Show, and we have a congressman or a potential congressman who will be coming on. His name is Cole Carter, in case you guys want to look him up. Don't forget, we have other shows on the network, such as Mental Health Mondays. Man, it's a very, very good show. And also hanging out with Miss Jeannie Ruiz, because she's all about her business. And that's what the name of the show is. She deals with financial literacy and entrepreneurship. So tune into any one of these shows, and we generally on between 5 and 6 or 6 to 7. All right. So we want to say ashe and thank everybody for tuning in. And we're going to get out of here. All right. Peace, my brother.
Hotep.
Hotep.